On today's episode of the show, really excited to be joined by Make Defense Great Again's Coach Chris Vasseur. Coach Vass also runs the Coach Vass Patreon, and he has a ton of experience at both the high school, junior college, and college level in the United States. And he's now using his incredible connections and expertise to help coach coaches. And that's something that I've found really beneficial in my relationship with him. He's here to talk to us today about special coverage. Do you want to kind of tell people a little bit about what you got going on right now, kind of, what brought us together, which was the podcast originally, and how people can kind of get in contact with you that way?
So my name is Chris Vasseur, and I am currently the owner of the Coach Vass Patreon, which I'll get into in a minute. My story is I grew up in Orlando, Florida. I went to the University of Miami. I was a student assistant there on the football team, and decided I wanted to coach on a deeper level or get involved in football on a deeper level after graduated. So I called 40 schools. San Jose State offered me the best opportunity. I'd never been, didn't know anybody there, but I put everything in my car and drove 3,000 miles or whatever it is across the country. Realized I needed to coach. So I left after a year, still helped out here and there for a couple of years. Coached a couple high schools, a semi-pro team, a junior college team, got a job at a 4-year at Millsaps College in Jackson, Mississippi. Decided that wasn't for me. And so I decided to come home to Orlando, where I'm from, and decide, what am I going to do with my life? What do I want to do? And I decided to go back out to California in the Bay Area, coach at 2 different high schools there for 6 years. Then decided it was time for a big boy move. So I moved down into the Valley in Fresno, California. I was going to be a teacher, retirement, insurance, all those adult decisions. The Bay Area is a wonderful place, my favorite place in the world, but it's expensive. And I was living in America. We have like different tax codes for different things. I call it the 1099 life. And a 1099 is the document you fill out when you're what's the word I'm looking for? Independent contractor. And so I was basically had to take care of everything. I was like a hired gun, and I wanted some stability. So I went to the Valley this year ago. In a couple days, I got some, sad news. My mom was diagnosed with cancer. So I made a list of things that if I had to move home to Florida to take care of her that I could do, maybe consulting just to get by. Consulting, I have this podcast, Make Defense Great Again. And I wrote this list out and kind of put it in my back pocket and said, if I need to move home, my mom was doing okay. And then everything kind of happened at once. And she went from getting better to passing away in 22 days. And she died on Christmas last year. So I came home for the funeral, and I kind of took that list out of my back pocket, so to speak. And I wanted to move. I'm actually in the spare bedroom of my childhood home. And I was like, you know what? I want to move home. I want to take over this house. This is where I'm supposed to be. So I decided in February, once all the dust settled in February, March, to kind of start my own business. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go for this. I decided to, I do in-season consulting for teams, off-season consulting. I do the Patreon, which has different tiers. So we have bonus podcasts, monthly off-season webinars, weekly in-season webinars. We have a Discord channel. I have a huddle with 580 hours of huddle film. There's different tiers, different packages. So I did that. I've done some CoachTube courses on developing a third down game plan. Well, I guess in Canada, it would be second down game plan.
Yep.
For pressures and coverages, and then defending RPOs out of 3 and 4 down with 1, 2, and 3 high. Just try to put some stuff together and make it. And, I may go back into teaching at some point, but I figured I'd give this a go. And it's been, my dream, my absolute dream was to get maybe like 75 people on the Patreon in like a year. And in 3 months, 4 months, I'm up to 210. And it's taking, you're on there. It's taken off. So that's kind of my main focus. That was actually, it's funny, you make plans and then life happens. I was going to do consulting. We did some consulting work.
Yep.
And pod sponsorships was a big deal, part of what I was going to do. Well, when COVID happened, sponsorships dried up. People, we had booked time really before it really, really hit, I think.
Yep.
And, so people were all sitting at home bored. So there was everybody was consulting. And so I said, I need a new angle. And I put into Patreon thinking to be like the 5th thing I worked on. And it's now my main focus. And so I have a great community on Discord. We have guys that have coached for 20 years. We have guys that, are offensive coaches that are just learning basics on defense. We have guys that aren't even coaches that just want to learn the game. We've built a cool little community. And the cool thing about it is, you're in a setting where you can chat and not worry about what they can't see. Like, it's not just out in the world. Like, I love Twitter. I'm the president of the Coaching Twitter Alliance. But, sometimes there's things you can talk about what you've done or what other people do. But when you're going to talk about what you're going to do, may not be the best place, because you got prying eyes.
Absolutely.
So it gives a safe space, so to speak, for people that want to come and share ideas and not worry about somebody spying on them. Because even the old Coach Huey days, I knew so many coaches who didn't even post. They just had not burner accounts, but just had accounts that just lurked. They called them lurkers or whatever in there, and just were information gatherers. And so this gives you a place to kind of, pretty much everybody identifies themselves, so you know who's who, and it's a really cool little group of coaches. And it's been unexpected. This whole thing's been unexpected. I mean, if you'd have told me a year ago today, on August 17th, 2019, that I would be living back at the house I grew up in, that I lived at from the age of like a day old to 19, and have come back to every Christmas and summer since I've left, and I would have been like, "You're insane, Jackson. Like, what is wrong with you?"
Yeah. No, I can totally attest to it. Like, that was, kind of, I first, I think I saw you on a Glacier clinic and started to follow like your Twitter and some of your work. And then, I think the first, maybe it wasn't the first episode. One of the first episodes of the podcast was Don Brown. And like, that's the guy, one of my fellow coaches actually put me onto it today. Coach Vass is running a podcast. You should check it out. And I looked at it, and the first one I saw was the Don Brown part 1 episode. And, kind of since then I've been following your work, and I reached out to Coach, and it's huge because I know, obviously, Canadian audience, there are things that we see that trickle up from the States. And I think a lot of stuff we talked about is, again, it's more not exactly the specifics of exactly how it works in 11-man football, but understanding the principles of things that might trickle, up to us, or things that we can use that carry over. And, I can speak, I'm on the huddle all the time. I was on there, yesterday watching some stuff, and you always say on yours, there's stuff on there that I can't talk about. And I can guarantee you, especially for Canadian coaches who, maybe you don't have the connections to find, film, I'll just say film, you know what I mean, that you want to see cut-ups that you wouldn't be able to find. Coach has it on there, and it's definitely been, well worth, my investment and time in contact. And even the consulting work was huge for me, clarifying some things that I've watched that I think I knew about 80% of, but like anyone knows, if you know 80% of it, you might as well not know any of it, because if you can't fix it, it's not going to help you out. So, definitely something I think people should be, interested in and to take a look at. A couple of the things that I want to kind of talk about today are, things that kind of directly translate, and I saw in the Canadian game and wanted to kind of get your perspective on. And the first was a coverage. I know it's got a ton of different names. I think most people in Canada call it tri-lock, but I think in the States, stubby and mini are
Stubby and special are probably the two most used to describe it.
Yeah. So kind of that we see a ton of 3 receiver stuff up in Canada, right? 3 receivers to a side. We can see it out of a number of different sets on the backside. We're just going to talk about the front side of it, like how you cover down that 3-man surface. So when you're teaching stubby as a coverage, kind of how do you install it with your players? What are the kind of core fundamental pieces that you're looking to use in that coverage to help your guys understand and execute?
All right, so the starting point for stubby for us, what we call special, and that we get that name from TCU. And it's funny because people call it stubby now, but back when TCU was really rolling, when they were in the Mountain West and early on in the Big 12, everybody called it special because they're kind of the ones that made it popular. I think, and maybe I'm biased because that's what I studied. But so stubby special, we have a joke on the podcast. We call it special stubby mini lock. And I had Bud Foster on him. Then he threw another name. And no, I think it was key or lock. I think it was something I'd never heard before. I'm like, all right, great. Basically, when you take it all apart, it's what some people call an X out coverage. I guess maybe you're a Z out coverage. You're basically taking number 1 out of the trips, and you're playing palms coverage to read over 2 and 3. when you strip it all away. Now, the techniques are different because you're not going to teach your strong safety, star, nickel, whatever you want to call them, exactly how you would a corner. And because they don't play corner techniques, you could teach a novel concept. Like, you know, if there was a corner playing on the side, I'd say, hey, just play like you would at corner. But, you know, you can be more creative because those guys, it's not like they're building off another technique. So the corner on the number one receiver is man on one everywhere he goes. Some people call that Meg. And when I mean Meg, I mean Meg. There's no, you know, you're not passing anything off. Now, I will say the caveat to that is if they motion back to 2x2 or they kind of scrunch their splits up, I don't want to play stubby. It's just like you don't want to play press man into stacks unless you're doing like a top hat situation where you're pressing the guy on and you have the guy off. But I'm saying if people are close, you want to treat that more as a true zone. So basically what you're doing is you're taking the corner, you're manning up one, because in America, and I'm sure it's even worse in Canada, I don't know your half situation, but nobody throws to the one in trips unless –
Trust me, yeah, nobody. It's to the field, it's like the longest throw ever. So
unless
very similar.
I've played some good quarterbacks. We played Jaden Daniels at the state championship game a couple years ago. He's a sophomore at Arizona State, or he was a junior, and he's now a sophomore at Arizona State. I got it right finally. And he could throw field side deep ball throws to their 6'8" monster receiver. So, I mean, it's been there before. We've seen it, but it's usually very, very few and far between. So you're just taking one out of the game, and you're going to play 3/2 over number 2 and number 3. Now, how we teach our nickel star strong safety is we do the TCU version. So we start square. Everything we do, we start from an outside of 2 alignment. And the reason is, to me, it discourages perimeter run game and it discourages perimeter passing game. We tell our kids all the time, ugly football plays happen outside and deep. Very few times, I mean, the quickest way to the end zone is down the middle, but very few times is a dive go and hit for 60 yards. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, a team will jab you to death and if they can run in the A-gaps, you're not going to win, but it's a slow death. But you give up perimeter balls or deep balls, it'll be a fast death. And so what it does is it covers down the most vulnerable area of the field to me, which is the field. And it tries to cut that off. So what we tell our guy is you're outside shaded in number 2 at 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. We don't line up off receivers, especially in Canada when they can run forward at you. I would not be doing that. And then right before the snap, we turn our back to the sideline. So if you've ever seen like a shuffle corner, and if you've ever seen TCU, and maybe you can pull, you said you may be doing some drawings or some things. If you could pull,
I'll find some.
A special. It's basically like a bailed corner, 3 shuffle steps, and then you're going. Now, we don't teach it like a corner because our corners are usually more athletic, so they can bail later. But our strong safety, our nickel is a strong safety. It's a TCU. He's basically a bigger, deep safety. He's people call it a tweener, I guess. Bigger than your deeper safeties, lighter than your linebackers. We're not like LSU or Bama, though, where that guy's basically a corner. And so our guy's got to go. He's got to – the more terrible athletically they are, the quicker we're out of there.
That's probably better for our listeners anyway, because, again, that guy's got the waggle. So even if that guy is, like for us, that'd be what we call our field halfback. That guy, he's going to have to give up some ground, barring you got a 1 in a million type kid. That you're right. The situation plays the same.
Yeah, in high school. Now, if I was in college, it would be different. But in high school, you're dealt with what you're dealt. And so the reason we don't put our best kid there is because you can hide them. So usually the better our defense, you can tell how good our defense is by who our nickel is. Now, with that being said, the best defense I've ever had, we had the worst nickel we've ever had. So, I mean, there's always those years. But I was also coaching in the Bay Area in California, which is like 1980s football. I formation, wing T, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you're not picking a strong safety based on covering verticals at number 2.
Yep.
So, and because you only get so many good DBs, we usually put them in other spots. Like our boundary corner and our free safety to the field is deep safety to the field is our best guys. Our smartest kids use their boundary safety because he has to do a bunch of checks. But so that nickel, I mean, if you have 5 really good DBs at high school, then you're going to be set. So we get that guy going on his horse, and he is bailing. He has all of he has all of 2 vertical and out, and then what we call swing deep of 3, meaning if 3 comes out or out and then swings and then goes deep, you got him. And we kind of we used to do it all over the field, but then, if you run a seam by 2 and a 10-yard out, that's really hard for the inside safety to get over the top, which I'm going to get to in a minute. So that's really his responsibility. And I would tell you that we would probably deepen our guy off the bat, especially in Canada. I'm lining that guy up at 7 yards, especially if he's off. Now, if he's on, then I may choke down. But if he's off, I'm off. Because, and granted, I don't know much about Canadian offense, but I don't understand. Why would you take a guy off, run him full speed to run a 5-yard hitch? I could be wrong. Is that something that's done?
I mean, you got to have 7 guys on, same as you guys. So unless you're getting somebody, typically the Z's on and the Y's off. Very under 10% of plays would be the other way. Like if you were going to motion the Z or something. But yeah, you're going to get the Y off, and that's usually it depends on the team. Usually that's a pretty effective receiver, the 2 to the field.
Right, but he's usually off going full speed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's not running like 5-yard hitches?
I mean, he can, but like that's a position you're going to get a lot of verticals. Like you're going to get a lot of that 4 vert or the bender off of 4 vert type stuff from that guy.
Do you ever see 6 verts?
I mean, there's lots of option routes. It's not impossible. Not really. You'll get usually you still are mostly getting 4 verts. It's just you might have option routes, and who end up being the 4 guys can change, because there's not enough room. We were kind of having this conversation the other day, like if adding one more guy, like what keeps it proportionate type thing. Mm-hmm. But you'd run into the same problems as if you ran 5 verts for you guys. Like
right,
you just run out of a little bit of room, and you can only make so many of the throws.
Well, the joke in America is that 5 verts is like the passing league.
Yeah.
And I've been in high school passing leagues where so you're not supposed to be an empty. Sorry, I don't want to derail us, but
it's all good.
That's the hallmark of my podcast. Is
we're getting an authentic look.
We're just the ADHD kicks in, and we're going to go over here. But we played a team, so you couldn't go empty, and so they'd line the fullback up like 2 yards, like right under the center or right off the side of the center.
Yeah.
2 yards from the line of scrimmage and 1 yard, and they would send 5 verts. And so, and I've seen it now. I think the Chiefs or somebody in the pros did it or college did it. But that's kind of we call it a passing league route.
Yeah.
Or we run our offense at Sarah, but we legit ran this, and you can ask around. We would ran double smash or double China hitches and corners, and we'd send the back down the pipe.
Yep.
Which people usually be so scared of our passing game. When we saw like rush 3 split safeties or whatever, we would run it, and we've scored many touchdowns on it. So I was always wondering in Canada, like if you're doing passing league, does anybody pull out the 6 verts BS and like?
Well, you can like, you can get into lots of stuff. The hard thing for us is like you can get 4 to a side and then get the back out there, it becomes number 5, and there's just like there's enough space that you can create that spacing, but. Yeah, no, it's a different ball.
Sure. The new thing that people are doing, like the Chiefs, they get into 5-0. So they'll line up in gun strong 3-1.
Yep.
They'll run 4 verts. They'll run 3 verts to one side, swing the back, and then run X on a shallow.
Yeah.
So you
will get that.
5. Yeah. You guys get 6-0 where you're like in quads, back swings, and then you get the guy back across.
Usually someone's going back the other way.
Okay.
Whether like if they get to the appropriate landmark. We had some success at the university that I'm at because we can go 3-1 with 2 backs and bring both backs out to the field. And it was kind of like we would run a similar version of mesh, like run a couple guys back the other way, pick for the X underneath. So you kind of got like a diagonal vertical and like a spot route, and the X would come back. And we had some success with that, but no, it definitely creates some challenges. I'd be interested to hear, some of the experts on your side of the border's take on how they defend it. The motion would be the hardest thing. Like there's a lot of things that you can do in the American game, because out of certain formations, you can guarantee you're only going to get
right.
Barring you can shift, but then there's theoretically still time. Whereas our guys can move independently. So you can get through 3 formations. You can start in 3-1, 2 back, get to empty and still finish in one back. Like that's what's hard.
Oh my God. Sorry, I'm turning into the interviewer instead of the interviewee.
It's all good, man.
Have it. All right. So back to Stubby, Stump, Mini Lock, whatever you want to call it. Special. So that nickel star strong safety has 2 vertical and then 2 or 3 out. So the deep safety, and you kind of, it's hard to teach in pieces because the guys work independently of each other. So invariably they work dependently. They work together, symbiotic relationship, whatever you want to call it. So the hard part is when you're describing only one position, your natural reactions, well, what happens if this happens?
Yeah.
Because you haven't told the other side. So our deep safety to the trips is 2x12 inside of number 3. And then the alignment will vary by ability and by the alignment of the receiver. Like if he's 3 yards from the tackle, well, he's not going to run a bender.
Yeah.
Usually you get wide to get the guy to commit and then bend back across. He's either running a shallow route or he's buying room for a corner route. So we'll line up outside, especially if we have we always talk about one side's independent of the other, but especially if we know we have help from the backside safety, we'll cheat that outside. So he has 3 vertical and out. Or I'm sorry, 3 vertical. And if 3 is out, he takes 2 vertical. This is where you can't tell that star, that strong safety, that nickel, that, hey, you can, you have 3 out past 10 yards because the other safety's got to give it the top.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of play it like palms. So in our palms coverage, 2 read coverage, our deep safety is responsible for the out of 3, the 10-yard out, or the out of 2 rather. So because they're shuffling, they're starting at 12, but they're shuffling, so we have them break on that. So that's kind of our, dividing line is 10 yards. So if you get vert by 1, vert by 2, 10-yard out of 3, we would say, hey, safety, the deep safety on 3 should be able to take that. Nickel stay on 2. So we usually, where we say the break is about 5 yards, which you would say in palms. Now, some people don't play palms or 2 read with the 5-yard out rule because there's a lot of space between number 1 and 2. And my whole thing is, in America, I don't know how it is in Canada, but if you want to complete the 5-yard out, you're going to complete the 5-yard out. So you can just take 1 out to the sideline, put 2 real tight. Unless the corner is trapping really hard, he's not going to get there anyway. Well, that's different with trips. So there's a legit shot at getting to play that 5-yard out because they're closer.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're too far apart, you run out of space. Then you just lock it and you say, hey, you just stay on your guy. You stay on your guy and basically just play it out like man. So that's really the deciding point is when do you want your breaking point? What can your deep safety cover? And when is the line of where he would be able to not be able to cover 2 if he had to come off a 3, if that makes sense?
No, for sure. And that is, especially with the waggle, guys being able to run at the line of scrimmage, that is the general consensus here as well. If they want to complete the 5-yard out, we'd rather to the 5-yard out than, try and have our safety have to play too far over to get over number 2.
Right.
So we would the terminology that I've heard up here most commonly is we're going to carry, if we're not sure, we'll carry 2 with that nickel, and for us the halfback and make them throw the out. And then if obviously, like you alluded to, if we want to jump the out, we'll play something else. We'll bracket that guy or whatever. So if it's anything, if it's in question, for the most part up here as well, we'll carry number 2 with the nickel with outside leverage. And then, obviously, hopefully we can game plan some of it and say, hey, if this is the split, be ready for the out. We can jump the out. But if the split affects us, or if it is, a deeper out route, then most people will give up the out. Same as you suggested.
Yeah, we say the same thing. When in doubt, stay on your vertical.
Yeah.
So the nickels, star, strong safety has 2 vertical. The deep safety has 3 vertical. The last piece is the overhang linebacker, DB, however you play it. We usually have somebody apexing the number 3 receiver in the ML line of scrimmage. Now, one quick question for you. You said waggle. To me, waggle's boot. Are you talking about where they can run around?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. the receiver's approach to the line of scrimmage.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I was under, because the way you said it, I'm like, I don't think that's the same waggle.
Yeah, no, not bootleg or like waggle pass is a term I've heard in the States. I think it was like
Yeah, it's wing tee.
yeah, wing tee stuff. Yeah, no, different. Actually, just did a Canadian wing tee podcast or video episode the other day, but we were talking about waggle pass.
Wing tee.
Well, I mean, it's the American wing tee with some adjustments, but yeah, it's a really good high school up here. Has a lot of success with it. So I had their head coach on the other day.
I'm just imagining red and blue formations with two backs. Before I start crying. So the overhang piece, Bama says post 3, we say long wall 3. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to wall 3 on a bender up to 10 to 12 yards, and then we're going to look for something coming in. Now, that's the base way we teach it. And I'm always talking about both coverages or both sides of the defense being independent of each other. This is where they have to work together. So if we're playing cover 2 to the backside and 3 runs of shallow or 2 runs of shallow, we can pass it back because there's a zone defender over there.
Yep.
We cannot do that if we're playing man. We call it solid, some people call it mag, cone, whatever. If we're playing man on the back with the other backer, anything coming back across the weak side, the apex player has to take. So we have a term that our backer tells the other backer, hey, listen, I'm in man. You got to be the short wall now. I mean, you got to take anything back over here.
So if you get drive, like say you get, you might get 3 on the under, or you might get 3 up the seam and 2 on the under, that backer's got to fall off and take it man-to-man across the field.
Yep. And so we have a code word that the backer says, hey, and then he'll also say if it's gun strong, we can push it. So we'll say our word and then alert, push. And then so if the back, blocks, we'll pass it, we'll wall it. But if the back swings, then we'll push. The backer will add to the zone.
Yep.
Backside backer will go ahead and become the wall. And we'll take it from there. So, it is a little bit dependent on each side. We just got to communicate. And that's what we do day one. And so that's really how we play it. It's very good. Why I love it, and I think it's the best coverage on football for trips in the States, is because it allows your weak side safety to play on the other side. We used to run quarters with a poach technique, solo, whatever you want to call it, with the backside safety at 3 vertical. And I've never seen a one play destroy a defense, which was stretch weak, 3 down the pipe, because the weak safety has to come down and play the run in an overfront and take 3 vertical. You're in conflict. Football's an easy game on offense. Find the guy who's in conflict and put him in conflict next.
Yeah, no, for sure. And especially in the Canadian field like that, the space that guys have to cover when in conflict, and even just the space that, like, boundary wide out, similar to the States, I would imagine, like that X receiver, like that's your dude. And, it's not a pass heavy game, I guess, but like offenses are trying to get the ball with that guy, and the ability to have the boundary safety be able to cone or double team that guy, or, not have to worry about poaching number 3. Like if you get, come back or fade from 1 in the boundary, that for us anyway, that boundary safety or boundary halfback can be totally he doesn't have to worry about if he gets post from 3, like if you get 4 verts, typical 3x1, 4 verts, he can, you can handle it and that's why I wanted to talk about it. I think it's a super beneficial coverage that way, and it is commonly run in Canada, and I'll throw some of those diagrams in there. So it's unreal detail. Anything else you want to add on that, or are you good to roll on to the next one?
That's our starting place. Real quick, we have another coverage we stole from Alabama called Stump, which is the same thing, except the corner's going to bail. And then the nickel star strong safety, if he gets a China or a smash call, meaning 1 runs a hitch, a quick out, which you don't see a lot in trips, or a slant or any kind of under route, the nickel star strong safety will come off on that, and then the corner will climb like he does in like a cover 3. We do that especially in the red zone when we're getting a lot of corner routes from 3. And if we get a lot of 1, if we're playing a team where 1 runs under and clears out to make the field bigger for the other 3 defenders that are left, like if you got slant or hitch with an inside fade,
Yep.
by 2 and a bender by 3. I don't want to be in special. You just open the whole field up.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be in stump. Let the strong safety go take the hitch or the slant or whatever, and let the corner bail. He's in a better position.
Yeah. No, I really like that.
That's really the main adjustment.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And again, like for us, very similar. Again, the reason I like it is, like you alluded to, the number one of the trips is the guy least targeted. I mean, on both sides of the border, I think, and I know like Canadian coaches talk about this all the time. It's such a long throw that even if they want to make it, like somebody can get there, right? So even if that guy's not a great man defender, right, playing man on that guy, he's going to be like targeted maybe 2 out of 10 in trips. And even then, right, it's not like you're playing man in a tough spot. So I think, and this stump adjustment is great because we had a ton of corners from number 2. Like that smash is a huge concept for us to defend. So
out of trips, yeah, I would play stump.
Yeah,
but it's the foundation. Special is the foundation. Stump is the adjustment. You can put it in 2 minutes.
Yeah, and it like you say all the time, when you're building on techniques, like you're building on that knowledge of special, that